Hi there, welcome to another ex-player interview as we look back on a historical date in Aberdeen's history. 37 years ago today, Aberdeen won the Scottish Cup after beating Rangers 1-0. That final became rather infamous for a certain post-match interview, but I'm delighted to say that goal-scoring hero from that game, Eric Black, is with me today. Hi, Eric. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, Ali. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm well, thanks.
Good. Right. We've got plenty to talk about, so I want to get straight into it. And I want to take you back a week before the final. So we get back from Gothenburg. You beat Hibs on the Saturday. And then you have to wait a week before the cup final. How difficult was it to get back up for that game?
As usual, the games were coming thick and fast. I didn't play in the Hibs game. I remember because I'd come off in the final with my ankle. I didn't play in that game. I didn't train for several days. So I'm probably one of the ones that had a little bit more rest than the others that played in the cup final the following week. But again, it was an important enough game. It was the end of the season. We were going to be crowned champions. We hoped that, well, we knew at that point anyway, but it was just another game. It was just another fixture. It was obviously we had in mind the cup final to a certain degree. That's no doubt about that. We had come off the back of the fantastic Cup Winners' Cup success. So I suppose the Hibs game wasn't as important, but it was a game that had to be played, and knowing the management team, there wasn't any way that was going to be diluted in any shape or form.
Can you remember when you travelled down for the game, and when did Alex Ferguson name the team?
Well, my recollection, I'm trying to remember. I know that we normally stayed at the airport hotel for cup finals going down. So I think we travelled down there the night before, most definitely. But we did the intention was to go back to Glen Eagles after the final to celebrate. We'll probably get to that later. But I think we stayed there. The team was named the night before, I think, and we all went to our beds thinking. Again, I hadn't played on the Saturday, and we'd won 5-0. So I suppose at some point I was considering whether I was going to start or I wasn't. But thankfully I did.
Can you recollect what Sir Alex said in the changing rooms just before you guys went out for the game?
I wouldn't be able to. Fortunately enough for Aberdeen, I played in 1 or 2 cup finals, so it was always a similar atmosphere. It was an incredible group of players who were incredibly determined, who were mentally incredibly strong. And I was a young man at the time, and I can't say that I was in any shape or form the leader. I was the one that kind of reacted to the more experienced players. So the intensity, they would lift the intensity, they wouldn't lift the focus. And I would follow. I would have to say I would follow. So it was the usual stuff. In terms of, we had played Rangers, I think. We'd lost to Rangers that year, I think, early on at Pittodrie. It was unusual. And then we beat them at Ibrox. So we were still confident that we could beat Rangers, no doubt about it. Very confident. But it was a cup final, and we were coming off the back of another cup final and whatever else. So the atmosphere was like other finals that I played in. It lifted a little bit. It lifted more than a normal league game, obviously, to the intensity. The whole build-up during the week is different. When you go there, obviously, it's different arriving at Hampden. There's the fans are in great fettle before the game. The place is packed, jam-packed. The atmosphere is fantastic. So it's that, and you're waiting to get out the dressing room at that point. You're desperate to get onto the pitch. Certainly I was. I had listened to everything I wanted to hear, and I was only focusing on myself at that point and how my first touch would be of the game. So at that point, you're just ready to get out the dressing room.
It was the same team that started the Cup Winners' Cup final against Real Madrid. But for some reason, we just couldn't get going that day. Can you put your finger on that?
No, I've got to be honest. I've certainly thought about it quite a few times when the final's been mentioned. I don't know if there was again at that point physical and mental fatigue was not something that was bandied about the Aberdeen dressing room. I can assure you, we were a very fit team, and mentally we were certainly focused. I just think that on the day, more players, probably more players than normal, didn't perform to their normal level. And that you can't get away with that. I mean, we did at that point, but normally you don't get away with that. If there's not at least 7 or 8 of your players performing at the normal level, it's very hard to win a football match. And I think we had less than that, definitely. But fortunately, we ended up with, I think, a bit of credit in terms of the mentality of the team to keep going through whatever fatigue or whatever mindset it was, to go on and win the trophy.
Let's talk about the build-up to the goal, because Simi robs the ball, heads straight towards goal. He then plays a side-footed pass to you. You take a touch. Did you instinctively know that Mark McGee was to your right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had pictured that prior to when Simi picked up the ball. I had scanned very quickly, and I knew Mark was outside me, and I knew I was the most central one. And then when Simi drove towards the edge of the box and made the pass, I knew Mark was there somewhere that side. That's why I opened up very quickly and was able to make the pass at that point.
Did you think he was going to shoot, or did you think he was going to cross it? What did you think he was going to do?
No, there was no doubt in my mind he was going to shoot. But at that point, all I did is what you try and do is I thought if something comes off the goalkeeper or if it hits the bar or hits the post, I need to be in a position that if it breaks, I can attack something in front of me. So I knew he was going to shoot. And at that point, it did help me that the goalkeeper at the time, was it McCloy? It was in goals at the time, I can't remember. He had narrowed his angle and gone towards the front post, which had left the goal nearly open, I must admit. So when the deflection did happen, it gave me a kind of 3/4 of the goal to aim at. And thankfully, I managed to get it in.
I just want to ask you about the emotion, because to win a cup final, to score a winning goal to win the cup final must just be absolutely incredible. It's stuff that we all dream about. But because of the way that game was going and because what was expected, was the emotion one of relief, or was one the emotion of pure joy?
I think it was still joy for me. I must admit, we scored late on. Well, I scored late on. I think there was only 4 or 5 minutes to go. I think when we scored. So at that point, you think, hey, it's not guaranteed, but you think the game's over. So it was joy. It was absolutely joy of scoring in a cup final. I didn't really care how I'd played at that point. When we went one ahead and there was only 4 minutes to go. So there was still joy, definitely, on the pitch. And I remember obviously hugging and whatever the other players on the pitch, and then going back into the dressing room. And at that point, the atmosphere changed slightly.
Okay, so is that when you first found out? So you didn't find out while you were parading the cup, it was when you went back in?
Yeah, I remember it clearly and vividly. That I was sitting with Peter Weir and a few of the other lads, and obviously there was a couple of bottles of champagne, and then the door burst open, and the hinges nearly come off the door as the Hampden dressing room opened. And at that point, definitely the atmosphere changed a little bit when the manager came in. Yeah, and again, I had no knowledge of his interview or anything at that point. I had no idea what had been said or why the atmosphere had changed, but it definitely did.
So did he give you a rocket in the changing room as well?
Oh yeah, there was a few chocolate said in the dressing room, that's for sure, which will remain obviously between ourselves. They were in there, but yeah, that was the first time I heard it. I knew of it because I obviously hadn't witnessed the interview outside. I had gone back into the changing rooms at that point and was enjoying a glass of champagne. Out of mug, probably.
So did it then make for a slightly frosty reception back at Glen Eagles?
Oh yes, yeah, I would have no hesitation in saying it was more like a morgue rather than a celebration. We had the dinner with a big video of the game rerun of the game, but it was very, very subdued, very, very subdued. And I think at that point, I mean, obviously we still celebrated to a certain degree. Yeah, there was 4 or 5 of us who didn't have. It was only wives that were allowed to travel to Glen Eagles. If you weren't married, at that point you weren't allowed to take the partner with you. So I remember a few of us going for a couple of beers. Get out of Glen Eagles and went for a couple of beers somewhere. But after that, to be fair, I think Archie had a word with the manager and thought that he maybe been slightly excessive, and there was a certain apology of some sort.
It's what's great now, and what makes the story so fantastic is that you guys can now look back on it and actually have a really good laugh about it, because Gordon Strachan told me that he now uses it in his after dinner speeches and when he goes to conventions and stuff like that, and he brings the house down with the story. So now it's really great that you've been able to spin it and make it a good laugh. Yeah,
definitely. And it's obviously through time. I mean, the intensity at that time was such. I mean, Alex Ferguson and Sir Alex and Archie Knox were two of the best coaches and managers, obviously, I ever worked with. And their intensity was 7 days a week. And again, I've mentioned this to other people, that I've seen coaches that can work, and I've worked with quite a few coaches now and managers that can keep it for 5 days a week, some for 6, but I've never seen anybody maintain it, the pressure on players, for 7 days a week. So it was a norm for them. It was a norm for him. The standards we reached weren't what were acceptable. And that's how he reacted, because he wanted it to be better. He wanted the team to be better. He wanted the team's performance to be better. So it's, looking back in it now, it's a semi-normal reaction for him. It happened to be a cup final after the European Cup final, which makes it slightly bizarre, but it's what it was. And we knew the manager extremely well. We'd all been there for many years, so we knew. And as you say, we can look back in it now and still know that our name was on the trophy.
Do you still have your medal and your shirt from that cup final?
Yes, I do. As I said to you, it's a slightly damp shirt that I had to dig deep, Ali, but here it is. That's
look at that.
And the number 10. There we go. That's that. And I don't want to be too conceited, but my wife did get this made up for me with the various medals that. There. So that cup one is one of these three at the top. What are they now? Yeah. That's the 2 League Cup, the 2 European, and the French Cup.
Wow.
So that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for showing that to us.
No, I certainly don't want to sound conceited, but thank you for asking.
Oh, lovely. Really nice. Right, I've got one last question to finish off.
Yeah.
Wasn't a bad season, that, was it?
No, it ended up not too bad. Obviously, the league was in the bag at that point. The Cup Winners' Cup had been tucked into Pittodrie, and to lift the Scottish Cup was pretty special. I mean, I think, was it late on that year? And it was November, wasn't it, the Super Cup?
Yes.
But that season, obviously. So, yeah, a very successful season, to say the least, and something that we can all look back on and have wonderful memories.
Yeah. Listen, thank you so much. It's lovely to see you as always, and it's great to hear your story.